In the darkness of your screen, another nightmare awaits. Welcome to Void of Fears. We've conquered 10k, but the shadows grow hungry for more. Our journey to 100k subscribers has begun. Every like feeds the algorithm. Every comment summons new victims. Every subscription strengthens what we're building here. Join us. Shape our future. The Void has room for all. Now, let's dive into tonight's story. The Void has a voice. I know this now. I know this because I heard it speak, and worse, I spoke back. My name is Dr. Alex Mercer, xenolinguist aboard the deep space research vessel Stellaris. I've dedicated my life to understanding communication systems beyond Earth, translating the clicks and whistles of European deep-sea colonists, deciphering the gestural language of Martian outpost workers affected by long-term low gravity. I was good at my job. The best, they said. That's why Captain Rodriguez selected me for this mission. That's why I'm the one who doomed us all. Our mission began in 2189, 16 years after humanity's first successful interstellar jump. The Stellaris carried a crew of 12, scientists, engineers, medical staff, and military personnel. We were tasked with investigating an anomalous signal originating from the HD 85512 system, approximately 36 light-years from Earth. The signal contained patterns, not random cosmic noise but deliberate, repeating sequences that suggested intelligence. My preliminary analysis indicated it might be linguistic in nature, a potential first contact scenario. The crew was excited. Humanity had found bacterial life on Europa, microbial fossils on Mars, but never intelligence, never equals among the stars. How naive we were. The journey took 8 months, even with our advanced propulsion system. 8 months of analysing the signal, preparing first contact protocols, simulating countless scenarios. I spent most of my time in the linguistics lab, running the signal through every analytical program we had. By the 3rd month, I was certain the signal contained language, complex, structured, unlike anything in our databases, but undeniably communication. "What do you think they're saying?" asked Medical Officer Thompson one evening as we shared a meal in the mess hall. Her specialty was xenobiology, the study of potential alien life forms, but like everyone aboard, she had become fascinated by the signal. "Impossible to say without context," I replied. "Could be a warning to stay away, could be an invitation, could be a catalogue of their scientific achievements or a collection of poetry. Language without cultural context is just organised sound." Engineer Patel, brilliant with machines, but less patient with abstractions, snorted. 8 months of analysis, and all you can say is, "Could be anything? I thought you were supposed to be the best." I smiled. After months in close quarters, we'd developed the kind of blunt familiarity that comes with prolonged isolation. The best doesn't mean omniscient. I can tell you it's definitely a language using symbolic representation of concepts, likely non-linear in structure, possibly incorporating temporal elements in a way human languages don't, but without a Rosetta Stone, without seeing the speakers or understanding what they're referencing, real translation is impossible. Security Chief Reyes, always pragmatic, asked the question that had been lurking beneath all our discussions. Could it be a trap? A lure to bring in curious species? Captain Rodriguez, who had been quietly listening, finally spoke. "That's why we're approaching with all precautions. Full defensive systems, limited crew exposure, constant analysis for threats. But hiding in our corner of the galaxy won't advance humanity. If there's intelligence out there, we need to know." I remember those conversations with painful clarity now. Our hopes, our ambitions, our naive confidence that knowledge would be our salvation rather than our undoing. We arrived on April 7th at 10:32 AM ship time. I remember checking my watch as we dropped out of FTL, my stomach lurching as the gravitational compensators adjusted. Captain Rodriguez had insisted we maintain Earth time patterns to preserve our circadian rhythms. "Look at that," whispered Engineer Patel as the view screen filled with our destination. A dying red star surrounded by debris and what appeared to be artificial structures, and there, silhouetted against the crimson glow, was a massive object. A ship, an alien vessel of impossible proportions, easily 20 times the size of our own. "My God," breathed Medical Officer Thompson. "It's still operational. Look at those light patterns." Captain Rodriguez ordered us to approach cautiously, broadcasting greeting messages I had prepared in various mathematical formats. We received no response until we were less than 500 kilometers from the alien vessel. Then, without warning, our ship shuddered as an unseen force seized us. "Tractor beam," Patel announced, awe and fear mingling in her voice. "Incredibly advanced, far beyond our technology." We were pulled toward an opening in the alien craft's hull. Captain Rodriguez ordered defensive measures, but our weapon systems went offline simultaneously. We had no choice but to submit. The docking occurred with surprising gentleness. A perfect seal formed between our airlock and what appeared to be an entry port on their vessel. Our atmospheric readings showed the environment beyond was breathable, if slightly higher in nitrogen than Earth standard. Captain Rodriguez assembled a first contact team. Herself, me, Engineer Patel, Medical Officer Thompson, and Security Chief Reyes. We stepped through the airlock into history. The corridor beyond was vast, with soaring ceilings and walls that seemed to pulse with subtle bioluminescence. The architecture defied conventional understanding. Curves that seemed to fold into themselves. Surfaces that appeared solid from one angle and transparent from another. Then we saw them. They emerged from recessed openings in the walls. Tall, willowy beings with elongated limbs and torsos that tapered to narrow waists. Their skin shimmered with an inner light that shifted between deep purple and azure blue. Where faces should be, they had smooth, featureless expanses broken only by 3 small spiraling indentations I would later identify as sensory organs. I activated my universal translator, though I had little hope it would work without baseline linguistic data. To my surprise, it began processing immediately. They were communicating, not through sound, but through vibrations. Subtle oscillations in the air that our equipment could detect but human ears could not perceive. The translation was crude at first. Examine, small beings, primitive. I attempted a response using the translator, explaining we were peaceful explorers from Earth. The aliens' vibrations intensified, and the translator struggled to keep up. Finally it produced, "Know you, humans, third planet, primitive species, amusing." They knew about us, had been watching us, and found us amusing. Over the next several days, we established a rudimentary communication protocol. They permitted us limited access to certain areas of their vessel, always under escort. They answered some questions while ignoring others. They demonstrated technology centuries beyond our own. Artificial gravity that could be adjusted instantly. Matter converters that created food and materials from pure energy. Medical devices that could heal injuries in seconds. But they refused to share any of this knowledge. When Captain Rodriguez formally requested scientific exchange, the vibrations our translator processed carried unmistakable derision. Children ask for plasma torch burn cells not ready, perhaps 1,000 years, amusing to watch try. They laughed at us. Not with sound, but their vibrating communication carried the unmistakable pattern of amusement at our expense. I'd seen that same pattern when they watched us struggle with their curved doorways, or when Reyes accidentally activated a gravity plate and was suspended upside down for several minutes. We were pets to them, amusing primitives. But throughout their vessel, I noticed something peculiar. Writing. Actual physical markings etched into various surfaces. This struck me as odd for beings who communicated through vibrations. When I asked about these markings, our hosts became still, their inner light dimming momentarily. The translator provided, "Old marks, not important, do not touch." Their reaction only intensified my curiosity. Later that evening, while reviewing translator data in my assigned quarters aboard their vessel, I examined recordings of their vibration patterns. Their communication method seemed deliberately engineered, too regular, too consistent for a naturally evolved language. Most species develop spoken or sign languages first, with written forms coming later as cultural developments. These beings communicated through vibrational patterns that seemed almost mechanical in their precision, yet they had a separate, disused writing system. Something wasn't right. That night, unable to sleep, I reviewed my recordings of the markings. There was something familiar about them, not in their specific forms, but in their structural organization. They reminded me of ancient human logographic writing systems, Egyptian hieroglyphs, early Chinese characters, Sumerian cuneiform. I became obsessed. While the rest of the crew continued formal interactions with our condescending hosts, I focused on these markings. I mapped their locations throughout the accessible portions of the vessel, noting contextual placements. They appeared most frequently near what seemed to be ceremonial spaces or boundary thresholds. Medical Officer Thompson noticed my distraction during our third shared meal aboard the alien vessel. "You're seeing patterns that aren't there again, aren't you?" she asked, with a gentle teasing that had become our routine. "No," I replied, pushing my food around on the plate they had provided us. "I'm seeing patterns that very much are there, but that our hosts don't want us to notice." The writing? Engineer Patel had noticed my documentation as well. Could be decorative or historical, like how we keep Latin phrases around even though no one speaks it anymore. "Latin didn't die out naturally," I said. "It evolved into daughter languages or was supplanted by other languages through population movements and cultural changes. But these beings, they have writing all over their ship, yet developed a completely different communication method that has no connection to it. That's not natural language evolution, that's deliberate abandonment." Security Chief Reyes, ever suspicious, leaned forward. "You think they're hiding something?" "I think they're afraid of something," I corrected. "And I think it has to do with their original language." Captain Rodriguez had initially supported my investigation, but as days passed with no substantial progress in formal diplomatic relations, she grew concerned with my focus. "We need you on primary communication, Dr. Mercer, not chasing linguistic ghosts. If they say the writing isn't important, we should respect that for now. First contact is delicate enough without us poking at cultural taboos." I nodded, promised to focus on main diplomatic efforts, and then continued my research in secret. On our 5th day aboard, during a rest period, I slipped away from my quarters. Our hosts seemed less vigilant during their own rest cycles, and I'd identified a section of the vessel with a high concentration of the mysterious script. The corridor I entered was different from others we'd seen. Darker, the bioluminescence muted to a dull glow. The air felt heavier, charged with an energy I couldn't identify. The markings here were more abundant and more complex, covering entire wall sections. At the corridor's end stood a portal unlike the others, angular rather than curved, with deeply etched symbols around its frame. It took me 15 minutes to determine how to open it, eventually discovering a sequence of 5 symbols that, when pressed in order, caused the door to slide upward. The chamber beyond stole my breath. It was circular, with a domed ceiling that displayed what appeared to be a star map. The walls were covered entirely with the mysterious script, and at the center stood a raised platform supporting a crystalline structure resembling a lectern. I approached it cautiously. The crystal seemed to respond to my proximity, glowing faintly as I drew near. When I placed my hand on its surface, images flooded my mind. Not projected externally, but somehow transmitted directly into my consciousness. I saw them, our host's ancestors, but different, more substantial, with actual facial features, rather than blank expanses. I saw their civilization spreading across multiple star systems, saw them encounter other intelligent species, not as equals, but as conquerors, subjugators. The images shifted, showing their discovery of something hidden in the space between stars, entities of pure energy, existing in dimensions beyond normal perception. The ancestors had found a way to communicate with these entities through a language that transcended physical limitations, a language encoded in the very script I'd been studying. I witnessed their first contact, saw how speaking this language altered reality itself. The ancestors began to change, their physical forms becoming less substantial as they mastered this communication. Some embraced the transformation, literally transcending their physical forms to join the entities. Others rejected it, feared it, tried to destroy all knowledge of this language. Civil war erupted. Those who rejected transcendence prevailed, but at great cost. They destroyed most records of the ancient language, preserving only enough to maintain certain technologies. Over generations they devolved, losing much of their former greatness, becoming the beings who now mocked us. The vision continued, showing me the aftermath, how the remaining physical beings developed their vibration-based communication, specifically to avoid vocal structures that might accidentally reproduce sounds from the ancient language, how they established outposts near dying stars, using the particular radiation to mask their presence from the ascended ones, how they lived in constant fear that their transcended ancestors would find a way to return. I pulled my hand away, gasping. The knowledge burned in my mind, connections forming, patterns emerging. I understood now. The vibration-based communication our hosts used was a deliberately constructed alternative, developed after they abandoned their spoken language. The written form remained necessary for certain technological applications, but they feared actually vocalizing it. As I stood there trying to process what I'd learned, a new awareness blossomed in my mind. The crystal hadn't just shown me their history. It had begun teaching me their language. I fled back to my quarters, my heart racing. Part of me wanted to report immediately to Captain Rodriguez to share my discovery, but another part, growing stronger by the minute, wanted to keep this knowledge to myself, to learn more, to understand. That night I dreamed of stars speaking in voices that bent reality. I dreamed of beings composed of light and thought, reaching across dimensional barriers. I dreamed of words that, when spoken, rewrote the fundamental laws of existence. I woke drenched in sweat, fragments of the ancient language echoing in my mind. I grabbed my tablet and began transcribing what I remembered. Phonetic approximations using human linguistic notation, contextual meanings that defied standard categorization. Over the next day, I continued formal duties with the diplomatic team, nodding and responding appropriately while my mind raced with new understandings. During breaks, I returned to my quarters to continue documenting the language patterns forming in my consciousness. Our hosts must have noticed something different about me. They kept their distance, their vibrational communications becoming more reserved when addressing me directly. I caught them watching me when they thought I wasn't aware, their inner lights pulsing in patterns that my translator couldn't decipher but that I somehow understood as concern, as fear. I spent the next 2 days analysing the images I'd witnessed, correlating them with the script. I began to recognise phonetic elements that corresponded to throat positions, tongue placements, breath control. This was a language designed to be spoken by beings physiologically similar to humans in terms of sound production. On Wednesday night, I remember it wasn't Thursday as I'd been keeping careful track of ship time, I had a breakthrough. I identified a simple phrase that appeared repeatedly in what seemed to be greeting contexts. Using the phonetic system I'd reconstructed, I practiced vocalizing it quietly in my quarters. Vethna Shaliktar. The words felt strange in my mouth, requiring sounds made in the back of the throat and sudden exhalations. As I practiced, the lights in my quarters flickered. The temperature dropped noticeably. I attributed this to ship systems, adjusting for the night cycle, and continued my work. That night, I dreamed of voices speaking in the ancient tongue, sounds that seemed to reconfigure the fabric of reality with each syllable. I woke with knowledge I couldn't possibly possess, understanding of linguistic structures I'd never studied, awareness of conceptual frameworks that human minds weren't designed to contain. In my dream, entities that existed between dimensions had continued my education, teaching me pronunciations and grammatical structures that allowed reality itself to be manipulated through speech. The language wasn't just a communication tool. It was a technology, a way of interfacing directly with the underlying structure of existence. The next morning, during our scheduled meeting with our hosts, I decided to test my discovery. As they vibrated their usual condescending greeting, I cleared my throat and spoke, Vethna Shaliktar. The effect was immediate and dramatic. The aliens froze, their inner light pulsing rapidly between deep crimson and bright white. The subtle vibration that always emanated from them ceased entirely. For several seconds, absolute silence filled the chamber. Then chaos erupted. They began vibrating so intensely that our translator overloaded, producing only fragmented output. Impossible. How? Ancient speech. Forbidden. The doorway. They will hear. Captain Rodriguez grabbed my arm. What did you do? She demanded. Before I could answer, one of the aliens approached me, its movements jerky and erratic. It extended a limb toward my face, stopping just short of touching me. The translator sputtered back to life. How no sacred words, who teach primitive, dangerous, very dangerous. Their attitude had transformed from condescension to fear. No, terror. I explained that I had studied their written language and determined its phonetic properties. This revelation seemed to disturb them even more. They conferred among themselves, vibrations too rapid and complex for our translator to process. Finally, one turned to us. Humans must leave. Now, speaking old language brings attention. Attention brings death. Attention from whom? Captain Rodriguez asked. The ascended, those who joined with the between, ancestors who became more, want to return, need vessels, physical forms, forbidden to speak their language, opens doorway. I felt a chill run through me as I connected this to the visions from the crystal. Your ancestors transcended physical form through some kind of dimensional shift, I said, and the ones who remain behind, your people, have been hiding from them ever since. Yes, they hunger for return. Speak their words, they hear. They come. You must go. Captain Rodriguez didn't need to be told twice. She ordered immediate evacuation back to the Stellaris. Our hosts didn't impede us. In fact, they seemed eager for our departure. As we hurried back to our ship, I noticed something disturbing. The bioluminescent walls pulsed in patterns, matching the cadence of the phrase I'd spoken. And in the shifting light, I glimpsed movement. Not of our hosts or my crewmates, but of something else. Something that seemed to exist between moments, visible only from the corner of my eye. Elongated figures stretching impossibly tall, with limbs that moved in ways that violated physical laws. Back aboard the Stellaris, Captain Rodriguez called an emergency meeting. "We're leaving this system immediately," she announced. "Whatever you discovered, Dr. Mercer, has clearly upset our hosts. I want full thrusters, maximum speed." "Captain," I began, "I think we've stumbled upon something extraordinary. These beings are descendants of a civilization that discovered entities existing in higher dimensions. They developed a language to communicate with these entities. a language humans can actually pronounce, unlike their current vibration-based communication. And speaking this language frightens them. Why, exactly? Security Chief Reyes demanded. They believe it attracts the attention of the entities, the ascended ancestors who transcended physical form. According to what I learned, these entities want to return to our dimension, but need physical vessels to do so. Medical Officer Thompson cleared her throat. This sounds like superstition, not science. Maybe, I conceded. But I can tell you that when I spoke that phrase, I felt something change in the air around us. And I've been having dreams, voices speaking in this language, teaching me. All the more reason to leave, the captain said firmly. Engineer Patel, who had been unusually quiet, finally spoke. Before we go, I think you should see this. She activated her tablet, displaying sensor readings from various parts of the ship. These were taken just before and after Dr. Mercer spoke that phrase to our hosts. Notice anything? The graphs showed clear anomalies, energy spikes, radiation fluctuations, even slight gravitational distortions. It could be their technology responding defensively, Security Chief Reyes suggested. Maybe, Patel replied, but these readings don't match anything we've observed from their systems before. And look at this. Similar fluctuations have been occurring at regular intervals since we returned to the ship, growing stronger each time. Something followed us back, I whispered, the realization dawning with horrifying clarity. That night, as the Stellaris prepared for departure, power fluctuations plagued the ship. Equipment malfunctioned. The temperature control systems went haywire, plunging some sections into freezing cold, while others became saunas. In my quarters, I found myself compulsively writing in the ancient script, my hand seeming to move of its own accord, filling pages with symbols and phonetic notations. The knowledge expanded exponentially in my mind, connections forming between concepts no human had ever contemplated before. Around 11 p.m, emergency technician Alvarez knocked on my door, her face pale. Dr. Mercer, Medical Officer Thompson asked me to find you. We have a situation in the mess hall. I followed her through corridors that seemed subtly altered, the familiar angles and proportions of our ship somehow wrong in ways I couldn't articulate. The mess hall lights were dimmed, and a small group had gathered. Thompson, Research Specialist Bryant, and Communications Officer Douglas. Show him, Thompson said to Bryant, who rolled up his sleeve. His forearm was covered in lesions, but not ordinary wounds or rashes. The skin had formed into patterns identical to the alien script, raised welts that pulsed slightly as if alive. It doesn't hurt, Bryant said, his voice unsteady. It feels right, like it's supposed to be there. I can read it. What does it say? I asked, already suspecting the answer. It says vessel, Bryant replied, then looked surprised at his own response. I don't know how I know that, I just do. Similar markings had appeared on Douglas and Alvarez, though less pronounced. Thompson had been monitoring them, taking samples, running tests. It's spreading, she told me privately, after examining the others. And it's not just the skin manifestations. Their brain scans show unusual activity in regions associated with language processing and sensory integration. Whatever this is, it's changing how their brains function. I didn't tell her about my own experiences, the dreams that continued, the knowledge that poured into my consciousness, the strange compulsion to speak words I somehow knew would further open the doorway. Crew members reported strange phenomena, shadows moving against light sources, whispers in empty rooms, a feeling of being watched. Medical Officer Thompson came to me privately, concerned that multiple crew members had reported identical nightmares, dreams of ancient, elongated beings observing them through tears in reality. I couldn't sleep. The phrases I'd learned repeated in my mind, expanding and connecting. I understood more of the language with each passing hour, as if knowledge was being poured directly into my consciousness. At 2:13 a.m., emergency technician Foster went missing. Security footage showed him entering storage bay 3, but never leaving. When Security Chief Reyes led a team to investigate, they found the bay empty of personnel, but the walls were covered with markings, the same ancient script I'd been studying, etched into the metal as if by extreme heat. More disturbing, the script formed perfect circles on the floor and ceiling, creating what I recognized as dimensional anchors, points where the barrier between realities grew thin. I didn't share this knowledge with Reyes, but I could see in his eyes that he sensed something was deeply wrong with the patterns. "Did you do this?" he asked me, his hand resting on his sidearm. "No," I answered truthfully, "but I think I know what did." Captain Rodriguez ordered immediate departure from the system. As Engineer Patel initiated the FTL drive, I made a horrifying discovery. Reviewing my notes and the new markings that had appeared throughout our ship, I completed a translation I'd been working on. A warning repeated throughout the alien vessel: "Speak not the words of the Ascended, lest you become their gateway. They hunger for flesh, they thirst for life, they remember their abandoned children and seek vengeance upon them. They wait between worlds, between thoughts, between heartbeats. To speak their language is to become their vessel." I rushed to the bridge to warn the captain, but it was too late. As our FTL drive engaged, it catastrophically failed. The ship lurched violently, throwing crew members against walls and consoles. Emergency lighting activated as main power failed. "What happened?" Captain Rodriguez demanded. "Unknown, Captain," Engineer Patel responded, frantically checking systems. "All diagnostics show the drive should be functioning, but it's like the physical constants have changed somehow. The equations don't work anymore." I felt a terrible certainty growing within me. "It's them," I whispered. "The Ascended. They're here, with us, in us." As if in response to my words, the emergency lighting flickered in a pattern I recognized: the rhythm of the ancient language. On the bridge view screen, which should have shown only emergency data, impossible images formed, stretching, shifting figures, composed of light and darkness simultaneously, reaching toward us with limbs that bent in ways that hurt to look at. "They're coming through," I said, my voice sounding distant to my own ears. My speaking their language opened a connection. They're using that connection to enter our dimension. "Can you close it?" Rodriguez asked, her voice steady despite the horror unfolding before us. I shook my head. "I don't think so. I don't think it works that way. Once the doorway is opened..." A scream interrupted me. Medical Officer Thompson was staring at her hands in terror. Her fingers had begun to elongate, stretching impossibly thin, the skin taking on a translucent quality that revealed not bones and blood vessels, but swirling light. "What's happening to me?" she shrieked. Similar transformations affected other crew members. Subtle at first, then accelerating. Limbs elongating, skin becoming luminescent, features shifting, and with each physical change came cognitive alterations. Crew members spoke of seeing beyond normal dimensions, of understanding truths beyond human comprehension. Research specialist Bryant, whose arm had first shown the script markings, underwent the most dramatic transformation. His entire body elongated, his skin becoming translucent, revealing not organs but swirling energy patterns. His eyes, once brown, now shone with inner light. When he spoke, his voice resonated on multiple frequencies simultaneously. "They're coming home," he said, his words somehow overlapping, as if multiple voices spoke in perfect synchronization. "The Ascended remember flesh. They remember limitation, they hunger for return." Engineer Patel tried to restrain him, but Bryant moved with impossible speed, his limbs seeming to exist in multiple positions simultaneously. He touched Patel's forehead, and she collapsed, convulsing as the transformation began, in her as well. I felt it beginning in myself as well, a stretching sensation, as if my consciousness was being pulled in multiple directions simultaneously. Knowledge flooded my mind. The complete ancient language, the mathematics of dimensional barriers, the history of the Ascended, and their plans for return. But something was different with me. Unlike the others who seemed to lose themselves in the transformation, I maintained a core of identity. Perhaps my linguistic training provided some resistance, or perhaps the entities had different plans for me. While I experienced the physical changes, subtle elongation of my fingers, occasional translucence of my skin in dim light, I remained fundamentally myself. Then, our sensors detected movement from the alien vessel. It was powering weapon systems targeting the Stellaris. They're trying to destroy us, Security Chief Reyes realized, to prevent whatever's happening from spreading. Captain Rodriguez made a swift decision. Abandon ship, everyone to the emergency shuttles. The evacuation was chaos. Crew members, some already severely transformed, struggled to reach the escape pods. The alien vessel fired upon us, rocking the Stellaris with devastating impacts. Systems failed throughout the ship. In the corridor leading to the shuttle bay, we encountered Bryant and 3 other fully transformed crew members. They stood blocking our path, their bodies now barely recognizable as human. "No escape," Bryant said, his voice resonating painfully in my skull. "The doorway must remain open. The Ascended come." Captain Rodriguez drew her sidearm, firing without hesitation. The energy blasts passed through Bryant as if he were partially incorporeal, leaving brief distortions in his form that quickly stabilized. "Physical weapons cannot harm us," he said, almost pityingly. "We exist in multiple states simultaneously." In that moment, I had an inspiration, or perhaps it was planted in my mind by the knowledge growing within me. I stepped forward and spoke 3 words in the ancient language, words I somehow knew represented a command to solidify, to commit to a single-dimensional state. The effect was immediate. Bryant and the others became fully material, their expressions showing surprise and pain. Rodriguez's next shots found physical targets, temporarily disrupting their forms enough for us to push past. We reached the shuttle bay with only minutes to spare before the alien weapon systems would breach our hull. The bay contained 4 emergency shuttles, each capable of supporting 3 crew members for up to 2 months with minimal life support. Captain Rodriguez, Security Chief Reyes, and I reached the final shuttle. As we prepared for emergency departure, Reyes suddenly convulsed, dropping to his knees. His neck elongated unnaturally, his head turning a full 180 degrees to face us, though his body remained oriented away. "The changes are within," he said, his voice no longer his own. All who heard the words acclaimed. Rodriguez didn't hesitate. She knocked him unconscious with the butt of her weapon, then dragged him from the shuttle. "We can't risk it," she said grimly as she sealed the door, leaving him on the bay floor. Our shuttle launched moments before the alien weapon systems breached the Stellaris' hull. Through the viewport, I watched as both our ship and the alien vessel were consumed in a blinding explosion, a desperate attempt by our former hosts to contain the doorway I had opened. For weeks, Captain Rodriguez and I drifted through space in our small emergency shuttle. Its limited FTL capability would get us back to the nearest human outpost in approximately 6 weeks. We established a survival routine and tried to process what we had witnessed. "Do you feel it?" she asked on our 4th day of travel. "The changes?" I considered lying, but there seemed little point. "Yes, but it's different for me. I'm not losing myself like the others did. It's more like gaining something, understanding things I shouldn't be able to comprehend." She nodded, not seeming surprised. "I feel it too, not as strongly as you, I think. But there are moments when I see differently, when I understand things I shouldn't. "Why didn't you leave me behind with Reyes?" I asked, the question that had been bothering me since our escape. Her smile was tired, resigned. "Because you're our only hope of understanding what's happening. And because I didn't think it would matter. We were all exposed. We're all changing. It's just a matter of time." She was right. Over the following weeks, the changes progressed. Subtle physical alterations. Fingers that sometimes became translucent in dim light, revealing not blood and bone, but swirling energy. Cognitive expansions, understanding of concepts that human minds weren't designed to grasp. Perception of dimensional layers beyond the standard 4. But unlike Bryant and the others, we didn't lose our humanity. Perhaps being farther from the original source slowed the process, or perhaps our particular psychological makeups provided some resistance. 3 days ago I noticed the first physical changes that couldn't be hidden or denied. Fingertips that remained translucent, even in bright light, revealing the swirling energy beneath. This morning, I found script etched into the shuttle's bathroom mirror, ancient words I somehow wrote in my sleep. More disturbing are the voices, not auditory hallucinations, but direct communications in my mind. The Ascended speaking through the doorway I opened, explaining their plans for return. They were once like their descendants, physical beings limited to a single-dimensional reality. Through their language, a technology as much as a communication system, they discovered the higher realities, the spaces between conventional dimensions. They transcended, becoming entities of pure energy and consciousness, existing in a state of near godlike awareness. But they miss physicality. They hunger for sensation, for the limitations and pleasures of embodied existence. They want to return, not by abandoning their transcended state, but by creating hybrid vessels that can maintain physical form while housing their expanded consciousness. That's what the transformations are, preparation of suitable vessels. And humans, it seems, are particularly compatible hosts. Our neurological structures more adaptable than those of the original species. We're bringing them back to human space, back to Earth, back to billions of potential vessels. I should sabotage the shuttle, end our journey permanently. But I find I cannot. The knowledge they've placed in my mind won't allow it. The Ascended want to return, and I, what remains of me, has become their instrument. Captain Rodriguez understands this as well. Last night I caught her trying to access the shuttle's self-destruct systems, but her own hands betrayed her, refusing to enter the final command sequence. "I'm sorry," she whispered when she realized I was watching. "I tried." "I know," I replied, "so did I." We sit together now, watching, as our bodies slowly transform, as our minds expand beyond human limitations. We understand what awaits humanity when we arrive, carrying the Ascended within us, not destruction but transformation, not death but transcendence, whether they want it or not. The Ascended don't think in terms of conquest or destruction. Such concepts are too limited, too tied to physical existence. They think in terms of evolution, of bringing all conscious life into their expanded state of being. They see themselves as liberators, elevating lesser beings to their level of existence. That they do so without consent, that the process is traumatic and terrifying to those who undergo it. These concerns are irrelevant to beings who have moved beyond such limited perspectives. Once transformed, they believe, all will understand and be grateful. I can feel their certainty, their absolute conviction in the rightness of their purpose. And as the changes progress within me, I find myself agreeing more and more with their perspective. The limitations of physical existence, how could anyone choose that over the vastness of multidimensional awareness? Yet some part of me, some core of human identity, resists still. Mourns for the billions who will have no choice, who will undergo the terror of transformation without understanding. This account is my warning and my confession. If you're reading this, it's too late. We're scheduled to reach Europa Station at 3:45 p.m. on May 26th. By then, I don't know how much of Captain Rodriguez and myself will remain human. The transformation accelerates daily. This morning, I watched as my arm became completely transparent up to the elbow, revealing swirling patterns of light and energy where muscle and bone should be. When I touch objects now, I can sense their molecular structure, their atomic composition. Time has become fluid. Sometimes I perceive events before they happen. Sometimes I relive moments from hours earlier, as if they're occurring simultaneously with the present. Captain Rodriguez's transformation has progressed differently. Her physical changes are less pronounced, but her mind has expanded in ways mine hasn't. She speaks of seeing connections between all things, of perceiving reality as a vast, interconnected web, rather than discrete objects and events. Yesterday, she predicted a minor power fluctuation in the shuttle's life support systems 3 minutes before it occurred. "It's not so terrible," she said last night as we shared our dwindling rations. "The transformation. Once you move past the fear, there's wonder in it, beauty." I understood what she meant. Despite my horror at what we're bringing back to human space, I can't deny the exhilaration of expanded perception, of understanding concepts that should be beyond human comprehension. "That's how they win," I replied. "They make us complicit in our own transformation. They make us want it." She nodded, her eyes briefly glowing within a light. "Is it really losing if what you become is greater than what you were?" "It is if you have no choice," I said. We lapsed into silence after that, each lost in our own expanding awareness. This morning I noticed new script appearing on my skin. Not written by my hand in sleep, but emerging from within, like tattoos rising to the surface. The symbols shift and change, telling stories of the ascended, of their journey beyond physical form, of their hunger to return. More disturbing are the visions, glimpses of Earth transformed, of humans undergoing the change en masse, of our cities redesigned according to dimensional principles that allow for interaction between physical and transcended beings. I see a new civilization arising, neither fully human nor fully ascended, but something new, a hybrid existence that straddles multiple realities. In these visions, I stand at the center of the transformation, the first doorway, the first voice that spoke the ancient language and invited the ascended to return. Sometimes I'm revered as a prophet, sometimes reviled as a destroyer, but always central to the new order that emerges. The ascended speak to me more clearly now, explaining that humans will not be conquered or destroyed. They will be elevated, transformed into something greater. They genuinely believe they offer a gift, an evolution beyond biological constraints. They don't understand why anyone would resist. The shuttle's navigation system indicates we're now just 7 days from Europa Station. 7 days until first contact between humanity and the ascended. 7 days until the transformation begins to spread. Captain Rodriguez and I have discussed our options. We've tried multiple times to alter course, to send warning messages, to activate the self-destruct systems. Each time, our bodies betray us, our transforming physiology, refusing to carry out actions that would prevent the Ascended's return. "Perhaps we should embrace it," Rodriguez suggested during one moment of despair. "If it's inevitable, why fight? Why not be guides instead of victims? Help humanity understand what's happening, rather than leaving them to face it in terror and confusion." There's a seductive logic to her words. The transformation will happen regardless of our actions. Perhaps we could ease the transition, reduce the suffering by helping others understand what awaits them. But I can't accept it. Some core of humanity within me resists still, refuses to surrender agency, refuses to be complicit in the forced evolution of my species. Last night I had a realization. The ancient language opened the doorway between dimensions. Perhaps it could also close it. The Ascended had taught me their language to make me a better vessel, but in doing so, they gave me their tools. I began experimenting, combining phonetic elements in new ways, creating phrases the Ascended hadn't taught me. When I spoke them aloud, the shuttle systems fluctuated, and Captain Rodriguez complained of headaches. I was onto something. For hours I worked feverishly, assembling a linguistic counterforce, a speech that might close what I had inadvertently opened. The Ascended sensed my efforts. The voices in my mind grew agitated, the visions more intense, trying to distract me from my work. Captain Rodriguez became increasingly erratic as my experiments continued. One moment supporting my efforts, the next trying to physically stop me. The entities within her fought against what I was attempting. "You don't understand what you're doing," she said, her voice overlapping with others. "You would keep humanity trapped in limited existence. You would deny them transcendence." "I would give them choice," I countered. "Evolution should be chosen, not forced." As I neared completion of my counter-language, Rodriguez attacked me. Her partially transformed body was stronger than mine, her limbs elongating to restrain me. We struggled in the confined space of the shuttle, systems shorting out around us as our transforming bodies emitted energy that interfered with the electronics. In desperation, I spoke the first phrase of my newly constructed counter-language. The effect was immediate and violent. Rodriguez convulsed, her body briefly becoming fully human again before beginning to transform in new, horrific ways. Caught between states neither fully human nor fully vessel, the shuttle shuddered as if hit by an invisible wave. The voices in my mind screamed in harmonies that threatened to shatter my consciousness. I felt the Ascended fighting against what I'd begun, using the language they'd taught me to counter my counter-language. For 3 days, we've been locked in this linguistic battle. The shuttle our battlefield, our bodies the prize. Reality around us has become unstable. Objects phase in and out of existence. Time runs at inconsistent rates. Gravity fluctuates wildly. Captain Rodriguez is gone now, her body finally torn apart by opposing transformative forces. I stand alone against the Ascended, my body a battlefield of competing changes. The outcome remains uncertain. If I succeed, I might close the doorway, might prevent the Ascended from using us as vessels for their return. But the cost has been terrible, and I don't know if any truly human part of me will survive. Even if I win this battle, I don't know if I can ever return to human society. The changes within me have progressed too far. I might become something new, neither human nor Ascended, but something in between. A guardian of the doorway, perhaps, ensuring it remains forever closed. Europa Station appears on our sensors now. 2 hours until arrival. 2 hours to complete my work, to determine the fate of humanity. If you receive this message, know that I tried. Know that what comes through that airlock, whether it's the first wave of the Ascended's return, or something else entirely, began with words spoken by a curious linguist who didn't understand the power of an ancient language. The void has a voice. I spoke its language, and now it speaks through me. But I will have the final word. Listen carefully. They're whispering your name, but you don't have to answer.